Joining us now is former federal prosecutor Joseph Moreno. Joe, great to have you on this morning. What did you think about the order?
Well, there's no doubt it's a victory for Donald Trump. But how much of a victory and how long-standing is really up in the air? I mean, he gets some good headlines, and he gets that delay that Carol rightfully pointed out, and which means that there's basically no chance there'll be a case brought, if there's ever a case brought, before the end of the calendar year. So that's a good thing, right, when you're in the sort of the defense mode. But it doesn't change the fundamental dynamics of what's happened here, which seems like Donald Trump walked himself into what should have been a completely avoidable situation in playing games with the government for a year and a half about these documents, and then potentially lying about it, which is what we learned in the last couple of weeks with this application for the special master. So this might get him a break, but it doesn't get him out of the woods.
You think the government appeals this definitely?
They will, because while Judge Cannon rightfully noted that, there's an issue with attorney-client privilege, and, her position was, what's the harm in having an independent observer come in? That's sort of fair in a high-profile case like this. The big question is executive privilege, because there's a fundamental difference of opinion between the DOJ and the Trump camp as to whether or not a former president can assert executive privilege. So the special master will not only be in place, but there'll be a question on appeal as to whether what that person's scope is. Are they just looking at attorney-client privilege or executive privilege, which is much broader? And remember, we're talking about thousands of pages of documents here. This will go on for a long time.
And do you think that stands? Which part stands? Which part has better, stronger footing?
The special master appointment probably will stay in place for at least the attorney-client privilege review. Now, the DOJ has said, look, you kind of waited a long time here, Donald Trump. We effectively finished our review already, and we've moved on. So it's a bit of a moot point, but there'll be a second set of eyes. The executive privilege, though, I would say I would probably lean toward DOJ winning. They have a stronger argument that a former president does not have a strong executive privilege argument, but it's a jump ball. It's up in the air, really.
Are charges more or less likely against Donald Trump at this point?
Brianna, 2 weeks ago, I was adamant in saying I don't see the government bringing a case based solely on classified documents, because I feel like you get into this quibble about declassification authority, and I feel like that's just not the way you want to go in a case so unprecedented against a former president. The obstruction charges, though, that's much more basic. People can understand that. When Donald Trump told the National Archives, I've given you everything, and then the DOJ comes back and says, I think you have more, and he says, okay, now I've given you everything in May, and then they say, no, I think you have more, and they come and they find a lot more, that's pretty basic. Either you told the truth or you didn't. And so people can grasp that. People can understand that. That's something that's much more, I think, concrete, that if the DOJ says, look, we're not going to quibble about classification, but you can't lie to us and you can't lie to a grand jury. That's fundamental. And I think that's where his danger zone is right now.
Really interesting. Joe, thank you for your analysis.
Thanks.